Hello, audience, and welcome to a video I am quite excited to bring to you. If you've been following me on social media, basically Twitter or Instagram recently, you've been seeing my updates about a novella I've been working on for the past month or so. It's finally nearly done with the first draft. There's a couple asterisks there, but you get what I'm saying. The story is realized. I have one chapter left to write that kind of combines the ending I wrote early on and the rest of the story I've been writing to get to this point. There's this little gap that I need to do. That little gap's quite hard, but I have it outlined, it's good to go, and boy oh boy, does that feel good. Now, there are gonna be a lot of questions already coming at me. Daniel, I thought you were writing a fantasy epic, planned trilogy, where are those? I'm not ready for them yet. If I'm gonna be perfectly honest, I've just realized as a writer, I need practice first. I'm not Joe Abercrombie, I can't just spit out first law, first attempt, and I would forever regret it if I put out the first book in this series that's been in my brain for a decade and flubbed it. I need to warm up. And that's what this novella is. Don't expect the greatest piece of art you've ever come across. I'm aware of the weaknesses I have as a writer so far. My pacing is slow, painfully so, and my prose are weak. Those are hopefully going to be improved in draft 2 and 3, and specifically that's what I will be focusing on for those revisions. This novella, though, does take place in the same world, roughly at the same time of the actual fantasy series I'm crafting. It actually even sets up some of the events that will be unfurling within that main series, so think of it as a prequel novella if you want to. Specifically, after reading Murderbot, I just love the idea of having a couple novellas help build up the larger story you want to take place, though I do not think in any way, shape, or form this novella will be required reading if you'd rather just wait to jump into the main big fat chunker story I've been working on. This story is going to be vastly different than everything else I have set up in this world so far. If you haven't seen those videos, I'll have a playlist linked in the description down below of everything I have so far out there publicly available in my world for you to enjoy. Now, if you're not aware of any of the information I've made publicly available about this world, a very quick summary: this is not your typical medieval fantasy world. It's much more closely inspired to around 1860s England and America. Imperial as hell, guns, cannons, magic. That's the real backdrop for what this world is. I'm even putting in a railway system that's being built within the Empire. Yay! But I'm blurring the lines of technology because it's pretty logical to me that if a god came down and started leading things and pushing forward scientific advancement, there wouldn't be this exact steady evolution we've seen throughout our own history, and instead certain parts of tech would go a lot further, a lot faster as this figure decided what was of importance to push forward. Side note, it probably sounds a little weird that I'm having this godly figure come down and advancing science in these very traditional, only this one category selection at a time ways, but that's because this god figure is not in the typical modern, monotheistic sense. Think of a lot more traditional, mythological, polytheistic sense of a god. Very human and very limited. And I'm well aware the angle of it being a cult-run government is a bit strange when the actual god figure is there. Isn't that causing all kinds of wait, the free wills, then that's the point, that's the theming, that's the big question behind the actual big series I'm writing. I want to really get into the ideas of free will if you know for sure religion is right and there is literally a god sitting among you. I really am fascinated by that idea. Can you contradict a god if you don't like what he's saying if he's sitting in front of you? That's a question. There's a couple magic systems that do exist in this world. Grips, who use the Groholind, essentially a radiation-inspired, harder magic system, and the Anointed, essentially super soldiers chosen from the actual god who runs this empire to be imbued with extraordinary powers, each of which are rather different. Those, not really an element here. They're pushed to the side because those are extremely rare in this world, and instead, we'll be following 3 inspectors. Now, since this god has come down and expanded an empire that now consumes an entire continent, he has instilled a policing force that has been controversial in how it's been received by civilians, but under one captain, we are following 3 inspectors who have been assigned to investigate a murder of a noble family. They believe it's linked to the shadow organization that has been plaguing the empire and working to try and topple its cult-like government. I wear my influences on my sleeves. You're going to see elements from a lot of my favorite books pulled into this story. I'll be upfront and frank about that, but I've tried to put a big-ass twist on nearly everything, but it's not going to be deniable, or even on my most defensive day, that it's quite clear I took from 1984 for some of the ways that this government is enforcing its will on the people. My big twist there, though, is there are upsides to this government. I wanted to explore and look into the actual possible good that can come about from having a religious cult take over complete control and authority of the land. There weren't many positives, but I found a couple, kinda. I'm not going to get much more into this story here aside from that, because there's quite a few twists and turns here, and I feel like if I get into any of them, it could spoil the reading experience. I know how sensitive you guys can be about spoilers, and I'm not about to do that to my own work. The three characters who will take up a bulk of the page time are Clyd, Samuel, and Chapman, the three inspectors who are held up in society to quite a revered level. Inspectors have become popular. While they are a part of the policing force that is debatable in its effectiveness in the streets, inspectors themselves have been widely loved, as they tend to get to the bottom of crimes on behalf of the people. They are the one organization, the one force who undeniably is there to protect and serve the civilians. With obvious recent world events, I got quite into researching the police. I then divorced myself from the real world events and took it in an entirely new way, because I believe in doing that with your own creative work, and I'm not trying to do any overt commentary or messaging here. In fact, you could easily make the case within this novella I'm pushing ideologies I do not agree with, because, believe it or not, I'm not an authoritarian, but you're from the perspective of characters who are pro that. So, if you're interested in the fantasy genre, you like the idea of noble families being murdered and some investigators trying to figure it out, this novella might be for you. I'm working with cover artists, I'm going to try and self-publish, I want to maybe get in touch with some printers to get physical copies available for you all to purchase, though right now with the pandemic, apparently there is a printing shortage, so that could be rather tricky, and you might have to settle for a digital copy as well. Amazingly, a narrator I'm a very big fan of has said they're available to do it. That's not confirmed yet, but I will, on launch, hopefully, if everything works out well, also have an audiobook available for you. Regular folk just trying to make a difference in a world where gods and superpowered beings are warring with each other in a policing force. That's what I'm going for here. And as someone who loves Sherlock-type characters, yeah, one of them's pretty Sherlock. There's also a police captain who plays a major role, and I'm sorry, I can't write a police captain and not picture Captain Holt from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Just keep in mind, while I was writing his character, that's who was there 100% of the time. I do feel the need to add the disclaimer, this is going to be a fairly grimdark story. There is murder, descriptions of crime scenes, betrayal, lying, death, torture. It's not exactly a happy-go-lucky fun time, so if you're more of the Narnia type, maybe not up your alley, though I wouldn't say I'm going nearly full-on Prince of Thorns or even First Law levels. It's kind of, in the middle there. Definitely darker than Wheel of Time. Make up your own mind. I'm just here to write. You decide if you want to like it or not. Really, my goal here is if I get above 3 stars on Goodreads, I'm happy. I just need above 3 stars. 3 stars will make me quite the excited author to continue on. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for being so supportive of my writing efforts so far. Like and subscribe if you would like to hear more reading updates from this disheveled goblin here, or for, any other kinds of content that happen on this channel. And have a good one, y'all. Peace. And of course, I'd like to record a special shout out to my latest high tier Patreon, Draconicus. Super badass name, and I hope you're having a wonderful day.